Ever since playing Hotel Dusk, I've been a fan of Cing's games. That's why I thought it'd be interesting to play their very first mystery adventure. Glass Rose made its debut on the PS2, published by Capcom, and only saw a release in Japan and Europe. Interestingly enough, an IGN article claimed that not only was there a US release intended, but also a release for the Nintendo GameCube. The story follows a young reporter named Takashi Kagetani, who is investigating a decades-long unsolved murder case involving the president of a prestigious film company. One day, he and his friend Emi Katagiri are investigating the mansion where the murder took place. Suddenly, he's thrown into the past on the very day the murder occurred, and Emi has become an intangible spirit. And if that wasn't strange enough, all of the mansion's inhabitants are calling Takashi by the name Kazuya Nanase, who is supposedly the president's estranged son. Now Takashi has to solve this murder, reunite with Emi, and get back to his own time. This is a point-and-click adventure game, where you have a cursor to move around the screen in order to interact with the environment. In fact, you can even plug a mouse into the PS2 in order to play the game in traditional point-and-click fashion. The setting is actually pretty similar to in other codes. You'll be exploring a massive abode with themed rooms, and lots of little details to examine. Among the things you'll be picking up are little sparkles, which are pieces of Emi's heart that shattered from the ordeal. You'll need enough of these if you want to get the best ending. Also, the game warned you about tainted heart fragments that have negative effects, but I personally never found even one of them during my playthrough. Besides exploring the beautifully detailed Art Nouveau-styled mansion, you'll also be interacting with the many characters that are staying there. Speaking to someone will usually bring you to the conversation screen. This is where you'll need to highlight certain key phrases in order to find out more information about what's happening. It can be a bit picky about what you highlight, as accidentally including an extra space or punctuation mark will cause things to not properly register. However, you can also easily brute force these segments without any consequence. Sometimes you'll be prompted to use divine judgment in order to read people's minds, and discover information that the person doesn't want to tell you. The game pretty much spells out when you need to use it though, so there's not really much challenge involved in figuring out when to do so. Rarely, you'll come across suspense events, which are pretty much just quick-time events where you'll need to quickly choose the correct course of action. It's pretty awkwardly implemented, because the screen flashes away from the action to give you multiple choices. When you're not in cutscenes or conversations, time will gradually pass as you play. If you fail to reach a certain point before the in-game hour ends, you'll be sent back to the beginning of the hour, and your mind points will deplete. Mind points can also be lost by using your divine judgment, and if you fail a suspense event. Once your mind points reach 0, it's game over. However, there was a point where I seemed to have no mind points left, but was still perfectly fine to proceed. Either I didn't actually have 0 mind points and the counter was incorrect, or the game lied to me about that aspect. One of the things I really enjoyed about Hotel Dusk and Another Code were the puzzles that took advantage of the console's unique features. Unfortunately, there are no such puzzles here. In fact, there aren't any puzzles to be found at all, except for some completely optional tangrams. There's also a couple of optional puzzles that will lead to heart fragments, but again, they're completely optional. The lack of puzzles is pretty, well, puzzling, considering logic puzzles are standard for point-and-click adventures. But there are items you need to pick up. You'll just automatically use the items when needed, such as giving an object to someone or using a key. You can't look into your inventory to combine items for that matter either. As stated earlier, the murder victim, named Denimon, was the president of a highly successful film company. Now his family has returned to the mansion for the reading of the will. However, as things go from bad to worse, everyone is now trapped in the mansion until the mystery is solved. Basically, it's a classic whodunit narrative. The game features pre-rendered cutscenes, as well as full voice acting, the quality of which ranges from so-so to decent. It's also pretty apparent that most of the English voice actors are voicing 2 characters each.
What were you thinking about? I called your name several times, but you didn't seem to notice me at all. Oh, I know. You're Kazuya Nanase, aren't you? Do you know who I am?
Oh, Kazuya! Why do these terrible things keep happening? I'm scared. Kazuya, do you know where my husband is?
Don't worry. It's nothing serious. Don't touch the piano with those filthy hands of yours.
Something of note about the Japanese cast is that Takashi has a likeness of and is voiced by Masahiro Matsuoka, a Japanese actor and drummer of the band Tokyo. Seeing as how there's not much information about the game though, I don't think this stunt casting did much in the way of favors for it. The game sets up an interesting premise. It gives us several questions in regard to the characters and the relationships between them. But while these relationships are intriguing, the characters themselves aren't very interesting. Even though much of the gameplay revolves around speaking to these people and interrogating them, I can't say I really know them all that well beyond the surface, nor do I feel any kind of attachment to them like I did with Cing's later characters. The only exception is Hideo, a shy young boy that gradually becomes closer to Takashi within the short time they get to know each other. It was actually sweet seeing Hideo look up to Takashi as a big brother figure as they bonded over telegrams. It's just a shame that I couldn't really say anything similar about any of the other characters. I have more that I want to elaborate on with the narrative, so consider this your spoiler warning. Much like Hotel Dusk, several of the characters have their fair share of emotional baggage, and part of the story involves Takashi helping them be better people. However, these conflicts aren't really touched upon until the very end, to which they're pretty swiftly resolved. Which again, doesn't leave us much time to sympathize or become attached to these characters. There are diary entries for various characters that you can find hidden throughout the manor, the contents of which gives us more insight to their pasts. But these are completely optional, and aren't ever brought up during the main story. Overall, the pacing feels very uneven, with most of the critical revelations not being told until pretty much the tail end of the game. And it all leads to an absolutely baffling climax involving an evil twin, a plot twist that would make even Professor Layton say, "What the absolute fuck?" Which leads me to another big problem I had. There are several plot threads that catch a player's interest, but ultimately lead to nowhere. Amy's grandfather having a close female friend that shares the same name as her? Not touched upon at all. The mysterious supernatural curse that haunts Dedemon's bloodline? Still a mystery. The earthquake that gave Dedemon his scar and led to his estranged son to go on a murder rampage? Doesn't get more than a few mentions. Not even the fact that it's implied Takashi's related to Dedemon in a diary entry is brought up any time outside of that. Hell, we don't even get any answers about the titular glass rose puzzle that Takashi puts together throughout the story. And there's a whole lot more where that came from. And on a final sour note, the game's ending just ends. Even at the best ending, the only thing that gets resolved is that Takashi and Demi are reunited back in their own time. There's no resolution in regards to how Takashi's actions in the past changed the future, despite the fact that he solved an infamous unsolved murder case. And then there's a missed opportunity of him potentially reuniting with Hideo, whom he actually told he was from the future. Correct me if I'm missing anything with any of these unresolved plot threads, but I really don't think I am. It almost feels like the team ran out of time and or budget during development, and was forced to leave a lot of things unfinished. Glass Rose sets the foundation for an interesting murder mystery adventure. The visuals are pretty good for its time, and I also like the music. Unfortunately, a lackluster story and gameplay gives us a very underwhelming experience. At the very least, I'm glad that Cing was able to greatly improve with their later games, even if they also didn't get a ton of attention at release. Which makes me wonder how Glass Rose could be different if it was made after Cing got the hang of adventure games. Again, there's an intriguing premise, and it would be interesting to see the story of these characters fleshed out more. While I've been increasingly iffy when it comes to video game remakes as of late, this is one I actually wouldn't mind seeing be given another shot. Actually, I think creative works that have good ideas but poor executions are some of the best candidates for remakes. It's interesting to see how what we see in Glass Rose evolved into another code in Hotel Dusk. The exploration aspects and setting definitely remind me of another code, as well as the supernatural elements. Meanwhile, the large cast of characters and interactions brought back memories of Hotel Dusk. But while I very much recommend those later games, you won't be missing much if you choose to skip this one. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to click like, and subscribe if you want to see more.